Pandy, who I'm told came to Houston in 2021 to go to school, was found dead Monday evening inside her unit at this apartment complex on West Airport. Complex staff told officers that prior to calling 911, they received an anonymous tip about a body inside her unit. Gautam says there were no signs of forced entry when he and others visited the scene.
Mauna Pandy, a bright 21-year-old student from Nepal, arrived in the United States with a heart full of hope and a vision of a better future, not just for herself, but for her family back home as well. Her journey was supposed to be a chapter filled with opportunity and growth, but fate had a darker plan. In a new world far from home, she found herself entangled in the web of a man who wielded wealth and influence, like a weapon exploiting her vulnerability and dreams. At first, Mauna was cautious, keeping her distance. But when she pushed back against his advances, his true nature was revealed. The predator crossed a line no one should ever dare to, shattering Muna's hopes and turning her dream into a living nightmare.
Mauna Pandy had been shot 4 times, 3 times in the torso and a 4th time in the back of her head. Execution style, an officer stated. Prosecutors say the video shows Shah leaving after that. They believe he took her cell phone with him.
Let me take you back to the beginning of this story, where hope and dreams first took root before everything unraveled into something much darker. Mauna Pandy was a young woman full of life, a beautiful, vibrant, and brilliant college student brimming with aspirations. Born in Nepal, she had been mostly raised by her mother, Anita Adhikari, a woman who had endured a harsh and violent marriage. The scars from those years ran deep in Anita, shaping her greatest wish, that her daughter would escape the pain she had known and find a future full of opportunity and safety. When Mauna turned 19, Anita made a heart-wrenching decision. Despite the fear of losing her only child to a world far away, she chose to send Mauna across the globe to the United States. It was an act of love, driven by the hope that this distant land could offer her daughter a chance at the life she herself had been denied. In 2021, Mauna left behind everything she knew and stepped into the unfamiliar sprawl of Houston, Texas. The city was vast and bustling, a stark contrast to her homeland. Yet Mauna adapted quickly, embracing the challenge with courage. She moved into an apartment with a friend from Nepal and enrolled in the nursing program at Houston Community College. Her warmth and charm were magnetic. She quickly became the heart of her social circle. Her classmates spoke of her fondly, recalling her as friendly, outgoing, and endlessly kind. Mauna loved sharing pieces of her culture with her new friends, often taking them to Kathmandu Curry, a local Nepali restaurant where she worked part-time. Brian Evans, one of her close friends, vividly remembered their first night out together. Mauna had taken them all to the restaurant, where they enjoyed a feast of Nepali dishes before heading off for a night of roller skating. Her spirit was infectious, but what stood out even more was her relentless work ethic. Mauna learned to drive, rented her own apartment, and paid her own way through school, all without asking for a single handout. But despite the achievements that painted a picture of success, there was a deeper struggle beneath her cheerful demeanor. Building a life in a foreign country, far from family, came with immense pressure. Her friends saw only glimpses of her challenges, the exhaustion from juggling multiple jobs, the loneliness that came from being so far away from home, and the constant weight of her family's expectations. As time went on, things started to shift in Muna's life. Quiet changes began to unfold, leading her down a path filled with unforeseen dangers, decisions that would, heartbreakingly, turn out to be her last. On Saturday, August 24th, 2024, everything seemed ordinary. Mauna finished her shift at the cell phone store, where she worked tirelessly, balancing her responsibilities to support herself and send money home to her mother. She clocked out at 8 p.m., planning to meet her friends later that evening for a birthday party, but Mauna never showed up. Worry began to creep in when her friends noticed that their messages went unanswered. Mauna was never the type to ignore a text, let alone miss plans without a word. Her manager at the store found it equally strange when she didn't respond to a message about her work schedule for the next day. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. And just like that, the bright future Mauna had fought so hard to build began slipping away, overshadowed by a darkness no one had seen coming.
I was checking the cameras and she closed the store at 8:06. And then I texted her on Sunday at afternoon for I was making my schedule for the week. I was like, do you want extra hours? And she didn't respond. And then I sent her the schedule too, around 4 o'clock, she didn't respond.
The weekend passed in a blur of worry and unanswered texts. Muna's friends held on to hope, believing she might still show up. But by Monday, August 26th, that hope was shattered by a disturbing phone call to the apartment complex where Mauna lived. The leasing manager answered, only to be met with a cold, male voice reporting a dead body before abruptly hanging up. Alarmed, the manager rushed to Muna's unit. The door was unlocked, and an unsettling silence filled the air as she stepped inside. The place felt wrong, heavy, with an unspoken dread. She cautiously peered into the bedroom, but what she saw made her retreat in horror. Without a second thought, she dialed 911. When police arrived at 5:45 p.m., they were confronted with a gruesome scene. Mauna lay motionless on her bed, her body riddled with gunshot wounds. It was a brutal, senseless attack. An autopsy would later confirm the terrifying details. 4 shots in total, 3 piercing her torso, and a final, execution-style bullet to the back of her head. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting that Mauna had let her killer inside, someone she likely knew. Investigators believed her body had been there for days, hidden in plain sight while her friends anxiously searched for her. Her phone was missing, likely taken by the person who ended her life. A chilling detail that hinted at premeditation.
Among the photos being shared of 21-year-old Mauna Pandy, days after what appears to have been her brutal murder.
She had 3 shots, and she was laid down on the bed with head down.
Drona Gautam serves on the board of the Nepalese Association of Houston and is in touch with Pandy's family back home in Nepal during this difficult time, including her mother.
This is very unfortunate to her because she's the only her child. She's the only one child of the mother. So she's very devastated.
Pandy, who I'm told came to Houston in 2021 to go to school, was found dead Monday evening inside her unit at this apartment complex on West Airport. Complex staff told officers that prior to calling 911, they received an anonymous tip about a body inside her unit. Gautam says there were no signs of forced entry when he and others visited the scene.
As detectives scrambled to unravel the mystery behind Muna's death, the heartbreaking news slowly made its way across the world to her family in Nepal. Muna's mother, Anita, had been trying to reach her daughter since Saturday night. At first, she pushed aside her growing unease, telling herself that Mauna was likely traveling and couldn't get to her phone. She had no idea that her worst fears were about to come true. Anita vividly remembered the excitement in Muna's voice during their last conversations. Her daughter had been making plans to come home the following year, eager to reunite after finishing her studies. Now, that reunion would never happen. The crushing realization hit hard, and Anita's grief quickly turned into a fierce demand for justice. "I had such high hopes for Mauna. She was so bright," Anita said, her voice filled with anguish. "The person who took her life must be held accountable." Muna's death sent shockwaves through her circle of friends and the close-knit Nepali community in Houston. Those who knew her spoke of a young woman who was not only intelligent, but also fiercely loyal and honest. They gathered together, united in their grief and anger, all calling for the same thing, that justice be served for the kind-hearted soul who had been taken from them far too soon.
Mauna Pandy came to the United States in 2021 with big dreams and just her suitcases. The 21-year-old from Nepal wanted to become a travel nurse and work hard enough to someday bring her mom to visit.
What I really admire about her is she came here alone to America, built herself a life. She always believed in herself. She always had the confidence that she can do it.
Her friends, speaking only with KPRC2, are scared to reveal their identities and shocked that she's suddenly gone.
I didn't believe it because I was like, there's no way, I just can't imagine something happening to her.
Houston police got called to the reserve at 6363 Apartments in Southwest Houston after staff got an anonymous call reporting a body inside the unit. Monday evening, investigators found Pandy dead, shot multiple times.
For it to happen in her home, it's just, it's just hard to describe.
Outside her front door, this friend brought flowers to a growing memorial with a message that reads, "Fly high, sweet girl."
Nobody's gonna forget her. Nobody can forget her. She just had that type of person.
Muna's friends, determined to help her grieving mother, launched a GoFundMe campaign, quickly raising over $40,000 to bring Anita to Houston for her daughter's funeral. The outpouring of support was overwhelming, a testament to how deeply Mauna had touched the lives of those around her. The funeral was a somber, heart-wrenching gathering, drawing hundreds of mourners who came to pay their respects and offer their condolences to Anita. It was a scene filled with tears and quiet embraces, a powerful display of love and solidarity for a young woman whose life had ended far too soon.
As you'll see, it was a very emotional ceremony. The funeral took 2 weeks because Muna's mother had to travel to Houston to say her final goodbye to her only child. The language of a heartbroken mother is universal. At today's traditional Hindu funeral ceremony, every seat in the room was taken.
I was very happy when she came to America and she moved to Houston for me.
Muna's best friend from Nepal has known her since she was 10 years old.
I was hoping that for the rest of my life we would be inseparable like we were.
She says she still can't believe any of this is real.
I just think that she's gonna text me again. It just hasn't hit me yet.
What was the motive of it? That's the answer that we're waiting for.
Drona Gautam with the Nepalese Association of Houston helped organize today's ceremony. He says about half of the people here today knew Mauna, the others strangers, touched by the tragedy. According to the Hindu religion, Drona Gautam says Muna's killer will face justice, now or later.
Karma, basically, yeah. And as all religions said, it's karma.
While the community mourned, investigators worked tirelessly, determined to find the person responsible for Muna's brutal murder. They interviewed her family and friends, searching for any clue that might crack the case wide open. During questioning, Muna's mother, Anita, revealed a small but significant detail. Mauna had once mentioned dating a white American man, though Anita wasn't sure if the relationship had continued in recent months. But the most disturbing information came from one of Muna's close friends. He shared that, about a year before her death, Mauna had confided in him about a stalker. The friend couldn't provide many specifics. He didn't know what the stalker had done or how Mauna had realized she was being followed. But he did help her set up motion-activated cameras above her apartment door. Strangely, after the cameras were installed, the harassment suddenly stopped. This revelation sent a chill through the investigators. It suggested that someone had been watching Mauna far longer than anyone had realized. Determined to uncover more, the investigators reviewed the surveillance footage from the night she was killed. What they found was haunting. 3 videos from that night painted a grim picture. The first clip, recorded at 8:40 p.m., showed Mauna approaching her door with a man by her side. She was carrying a shoebox, a shopping bag, a black jacket, and her purse. But the man held something far more ominous, a gun. He ordered her to unlock the door. Mauna, visibly nervous, asked what he planned to do. In response, the man racked the slide of the gun, repeating his command. With a frightened look, Mauna hesitated, but then unlocked the door. The man roughly pushed her inside and locked the door behind them. One of the neighbors later reported hearing loud, unsettling thumps from her apartment around 9 p.m. An hour later, the camera captured the man leaving the apartment. This time, he was holding Mauna's black purse, the same one she had carried earlier. Authorities believe that during that terrifying hour, Mauna's life was cruelly taken, and the person who had once lurked in the shadows had finally struck.
Houston police shared this still image from a surveillance camera yesterday of a man leaving the apartment unit of 21-year-old Mauna Pandy.
By Wednesday, August 28th, the suspect's face was everywhere, plastered across social media feeds and flashing on every local TV screen. It didn't take long for the phone lines to light up. Calls flooded in, each offering a possible clue about the man's identity. But one call stood out from the rest. It was the owner of a Nepali restaurant where Mauna had once worked. He told investigators the man was a familiar face, a regular at the restaurant who would often chat with the women who worked there, leaving behind unusually large tips. The restaurant owner was certain this was how Mauna had met him, but he had more information. The man had even discussed a business venture with him. In fact, the owner had kept a copy of the man's driver's license and had his cell phone number, which he promptly handed over to the authorities. Another call came from a woman who immediately recognized the man in the footage. She knew him as Bobby Shaw, a name she remembered from a sugar daddy website she had joined back in 2012. With these leads in hand, investigators quickly honed in on their suspect, 51-year-old Bobby Sina. On September 4th, during a routine traffic stop, police finally caught up with Sina. He was still wearing the same red-stained clothes seen on camera the day he left Mauna's apartment. Inside his car, officers found a gun, the one they believed was used in the murder, but the biggest question remained: who was Bobby Sina and why had he killed Mauna?
Just 2 hours ago, the man charged with capital murder in Mauna Pandy's killing went before a judge on a gun charge related to this case. Bobby Shaw has been granted $2,000 bond for that charge, but he will not be released from jail because he's being held without bond for capital murder.
There isn't much known about Bobby Sina's past, but what little information has surfaced paints a chilling picture. He was originally from India and moved to the U.S. during his childhood. By the time of the incident, he held a seemingly respectable position as a vice president at a company that remains unnamed. On the surface, he appeared to be a successful professional, but the truth lurking beneath was far darker. Authorities have yet to release an official motive for the gruesome murder, but there are whispers of what might have driven him. One theory suggests that he and Mauna had been romantically involved, and when she tried to end things, something inside him snapped. However, Mauna's friends have adamantly denied this, insisting she never mentioned any kind of relationship with him. The other, far more sinister theory is that he was fixated on her, obsessed beyond reason. He allegedly tried to win her affection with gifts and money, but when Mauna didn't respond the way he wanted, his obsession turned into a violent rage. The outcome was horrifying. In an act of cold-blooded brutality, he ended her life. The charge is capital murder, and Mauna's mother has been unflinching in her demand for justice. In a tearful interview, she declared, "The killer must face the harshest punishment." The reality is stark and unthinkable. Mauna didn't deserve this fate, and now everyone wants to know why a seemingly respectable man could commit such a monstrous act.
Her mom, at least, thank God, at least he's arrested and asking for maximum penalty for him.
It's unclear if Pandy's death was the result of a random crime or if the pair had previously met.
We don't know what caused him to do this action, but we want justice for her memory and for all the women who died violently.
At Bobby Sina's first court hearing, the room was packed with Mauna's grieving family and friends. Their muffled sobs filled the air as they listened to the horrific details of what happened to the young college student. Members of the Nepali Association of Houston stood in solidarity with the family, their vice president offering words of support and praying that justice would be served. The prosecutor took a hard stance, arguing against bail. They insisted that Bobby Sina was a significant threat to the community, a man too dangerous to walk free. But then came a shocking twist. Sina's lawyer stood up, claiming his client was 100% innocent and was even excited to prove it. He added, "I can tell you, Mr. Sina is in great spirits today." The courtroom fell silent. How could someone accused of such a brutal crime be described as being in great spirits? It was a disturbing statement, one that sent chills down the spines of those who heard it. To many, it was a stark sign of his lack of remorse, a chilling refusal to acknowledge the pain he had caused and the life he had brutally ended.
We are happy that he got denied on the bond, and I appreciate whoever working towards it, and I really appreciate everyone who's helping towards this case and supporting us and Muna's mom.
The prosecutor and defense attorneys also spoke about today's case.
I felt it was incumbent upon us to definitely ask for no bail in this case. I believe he poses a grave risk of danger to our community.
The evidence that he's provided us, the conversations that he's had with us, there's no reason for us to believe that he is not guilty of the case that he's been charged with, which is capital murder. And we're looking forward to proving his innocence.
As of November 2024, there have been no new updates on the case. Though Bobby is still being held without bond, it would take a few years before the trial begins. But if he is found guilty, he faces life in prison.